Hi everyone, welcome back, welcome back. It's Saturday, so I thought I would come to do a video with you guys. I actually got a new shipment that came in, well, from my order, not really a shipment, but it's my order that I purchased not too long ago, and I'm going to show you guys these new pieces of African wear. Hope they fit. So I ordered them. Where did I order these from? Yeah, I ordered so much. I think they came from overseas. I'm going to try those pieces on at the end of the video, so stay tuned. But this is a topic that I kind of pressed pause on. I actually want to talk about it sooner. But I say, I'll hold off and talk about it at a later date. So now is that later date. And it's like, where do I begin? Alright, so I am a clinical psychologist. I work with the state of New York. And interesting, I said I work with the state of New York as opposed to for the state of New York. Interesting. That wasn't by accident that I said that. Because I'm very careful, clearly, with my choice of words at all times. And interesting. I work with the state. It goes to show who I am as a person, right? It goes to show my morale. It goes to show where I stand when it comes to working. I've always had the idea and the position and the belief, strong belief, that I'm not working for anybody. Point blank, period. I'm not working for anyone. Like, I am an entrepreneur. I am driven. I am a creative. I am so many things. I value myself. I appreciate who I am. And I've never wanted to get caught up in a 9-to-5, working for someone else, right? So I am employed. Shall I say, I have to make it clear. I am employed by the state, but notice I said I work with the state and not for the state. So it just comes with, I think, a different perspective. Like, I see it from a different perspective, right, in terms of what I bring to the table. And considering the person that I am, considering my belief system, because everyone has a belief system that they bring to any place, right, to any organization. And my belief system isn't going to change just because I join an organization, right? Like, I think it's worth getting really to know a person first before one begins to assume things, right? And I think that they are really getting to know me at the place that I work with the state. They're really getting to know me because there have been some encounters, some exchanges that have come up within my department. So I work at a hospital, and on each ward they have a team, right? The team consists of a treatment team leader, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a social worker, a nurse, a dietitian, and a medical specialist. I think I covered everyone. Oh, a rehab counselor as well. I am the psychologist on my ward. So there are, I think, 13 wards where I work. The ward I work on is one of the 13. And I'm the psychologist on my ward, and there's a department. So those disciplines that I named, the psychiatrist, psychologist, medical specialists, they are attached to disciplines. So my discipline is psychology. There's a medical discipline. There is a psychiatry discipline. There's a social work discipline. These disciplines are departments, right? But then within those departments are people, right, that work in those departments. And so apparently there is a shortage of personnel within the psychology department, and that affects me, apparently, okay, apparently, right? So I'm like, okay, I know when I was hired to fulfill a position, right? That position has a specified time period, right? Work hours, right? 8 to 4:30, which I thought was very convincing. It was very attractive, workable. And I still work that schedule, by the way. However, it was 2 months, 3 months into my time there. Now, granted, I started in December, on December 2nd, 2021. So probably 2 months, maybe not even 2-3 months into my position, just popped up and asked me to work late night. Oh, so they pose it as, oh, psychologists are expected to work late nights. And I'm like, this is not on the job posting. The job posting clearly states 8 to 4:30 for this position. That's what I signed up for. And so I'm like, late nights. So the late night will be until 6:30. And one may say, oh, that's not much of a difference. It's just 2 hours later. And it's just one night out of the week. It's just, right? But listen, my life is my life, right? So what I do outside of my work hours belongs to me. Well, my life in general belongs to me, right? But I dedicate that specified period of time, 8 to 4:30, towards this organization, right, that I signed up with. Outside of that, listen, that's my time, right? I take it it's offensive to me. I think it's inconsiderate, and I think it's very disrespectful for a person to assume that, oh, you just don't have anything going on, or whatever you have going on doesn't matter. This is what matters. And this is the reason why I have been always opposed to working for anyone, right? Because it's always about fulfilling the mission of the organization, more often than not, at the expense of every single employee who is dedicated and works very hard, relentlessly towards that mission, whether it's a company, corporation, agency, organization, nonprofit, doesn't matter. That usually is typically the theme running through every entity which I just described. I'm opposed to that, right? I'm not a slave. I'm not just a number. And I'm not going to become that for anybody. Unless, of course, it's a partner of mine that I love and that loves me. But that's a different story, right? But we're talking about within the context of this, right? Professional environment. And I gave some pushback, and I'm like, that's not what I signed up for. So y'all gonna have to find somebody else, right? And I get it, like, of course, like, there are policies, there are expectations, because this entity is licensed, right, by a governing body, and they want certain number of program hours for the patients, and they want evening programming and all of that, right? But I'm like, why wasn't that put on the table beforehand, before even the interview? Right? That should have been put in the ad, right? In the freaking job posting. Don't sit up here and bait and switch. Don't try to slide things in. Like, oh yeah, and this. Oh yeah, and this. Oh yeah, it's like, and before you know it, you don't have a life. You have become a slave to this never-ending system that they have going on. And I have been very observant. So I'm going to talk more about that here in this video on what I observed. Now, I'm not, of course, going to name any names of people or entities. I'm not going to go into like specific I'm not going to go into very specific details, but I will express my thoughtful reaction to this situation. Hello, I don't know your name because it's in a different script, but hello. And so that was the first, right? Working the late shift. And then they tried to slide in, oh, well, weekend cover. I'm like, no. That's a hard no, okay? The weekend coverage thing, right? But then they're saying, oh, well, there was one point where the psychology department was asked to rotate and take turns working a weekend. What the fuck is this? I mean, what the fuck is this? Considering, like, yo, there's so many other psychologist positions that don't require any of this, right? You work, and that's it. Hello, Ali. You work your shift, right? You do your work. You're dedicated to the nature of the work, which I am. Of course, I'm drawn to that for a specific reason because I like helping people. And I like working in the context of mental health, right? And I have a whole background story attached to that, which that's for another video. But yes, I'm passionate about the field. That's the reason why I am here. However, do not take advantage of me. And I feel like this is where it's headed, and this is what they are doing, and I don't like it, right? And then on top of that, yo, there's more. So, of course, we are in the middle of the pandemic, which I assume that the pandemic is over, right? But there was a new variant that came out, I think back in December, the Omicron variant. And they asked me, first and foremost, of all the other freaking psychologists, because I have the least seniority, asked me to start on the COVID ward. This is a ward that they just opened up at this facility where I work to provide psychological services, psychotherapy more specifically, to these patients. And it's just, are you freaking kidding me? Right? But I didn't give any pushback when it came to that. Like, I willingly accepted that, right? Because I'm here for the patients, right? And that's within my scope of practice, and that is within the work hours, my work shift. So I'm like, all right, no problem, okay. With respect to working on the COVID ward, and that was definitely short term. I knew that was just going to come to an end. I knew that it's not going to go on and on forever. It's just until the patients. I think they were required to spend 10 days on the COVID ward, and then boom, off, right? So eventually that census will have diminished and be no more. So that was that. And then there was a psychologist who lost her mom. She took off for 8 weeks. Thank you. She took off for 8 weeks. And the psychologist and the department, the psychology department at this facility, was asked to provide coverage. Now, granted, it's not just her who was out. Another psychologist was already out on a different ward because she's being investigated by the Justice Center, right? It's kind of mysterious, but whole separate story. And so they're asking people to provide coverage. And it's just like, why not hire a temporary psychologist to do that work? I don't like this idea of coverage, number one. Like, that's where you hire people to fill those positions, right? You do not assign additional work on top of the caseload that we already have. Now, let me say this. Let me break it down in terms of my caseload, right? Every clinician has a caseload, right? So I have 24 male patients assigned to me on my ward. With that, I am expected to provide psychological service, which include a range of things, right? Psychotherapy. What's a constant across all 24 patients is writing treatment plans, right? There's an annual comprehensive treatment plan I have to write. Then there's a periodic, which is done every 3 months, every 90 days, that I write for every single person. It's very extensive. It's pages of work. I'm not complaining about that. And I don't even look at this expression as complaining. It's just noting the obvious and offering and providing my perspective, right? So it's the comprehensive, the annuals, right? It's the periodic. It's the 28-day progress notes, right? And it's pretty detailed. It's not just a quick little dun 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 and you're done, right? It's for every single patient. I'm doing that, right? This is my ward. Considering the nature of the patients that I work with, right? Their clinical presentation. They are diagnosed with very severe mental illnesses, including schizophrenia, paranoia, delusions, hallucinations, bipolar. It goes on, right? I have experience working with this population. So it's not that, oh, I'm griping about that. It's considering the nature of the work that is already on my plate. You want to add more. Something is going to be compromised. And so more recently, they asked us to provide coverage for these other wards at the facility that they don't have psychologists for because there is a shortage. And I'm just like, no, the coverage that I actually agreed to provide, given that the other psychologist was out for 8 weeks because she lost a mother, that was temporary. That was contingent upon her return. When she came back, those patients go back to her, right? I'm not responsible for those. She came back. We had a conversation. She said, okay, I handed her back her patients. Then she goes in to the department head and no. Like she's retracting her acceptance of her patients back. And it's just like, this is confusion. I can't operate in this, right? So it ended up working out where she didn't have to pick back up her patients that she was already seeing before she went on leave, and they end up just distributing the work across the department, including being assigned to me. And then I brought the matter to my team, right? My home team, which I mentioned earlier. My social worker, treatment team leader, psychiatrist, we all are close-knit. I like being able to feel comfortable working amongst the people that I work with. Like, our lives depend on it, right? It's a very volatile, hostile environment. We're talking about sometimes having to do restraints, right? Which, knock on wood, but hasn't been the case on my ward since I've been there. But those protocols are in place should a patient becomes a danger to themselves or to other people. There are many patients on my ward who are aggressive, and they're there for violent behaviors, right, and histories and even crimes, right? There are some who are there because they actually pled not guilty by reason of insanity or mental defect. They've killed people, for example. They have hurt people, like, very seriously. They've attempted suicide themselves, so that gives you an idea of the kind of patients I work with. This is very severe. This is very serious. And we have this close-knit relationship. It's necessary, right? And so I'm expressing to them, like, yo, this extra coverage, like this, like, how many patients do you expect people to cover, to have on their case? Like, no, at some point there has to be a boundary, right? Considering the patient quality of care will be compromised if the quantity of work goes up. So their idea is like, oh, okay, we don't have to hire more psychologists. We can just split the dividends evenly across the psychology department, creating more of a burden on each psychologist within that department, and to that end, compromising the quality of the patient care. And this is just me 4 months into this position. And I'm expressing this, my thoughts, to my team. And the social worker goes, oh, it's just going to get worse. Oh, really? It's just going to get worse, right? And I also sent an email out expressing my concerns to the department. And I'm like, yo, this is actually, it's unethical. Part of me feels like it's unethical considering you want us to write treatment plans for patients that we have not seen. These patients are not on my ward. The patients on my ward I see. These patients are not on my ward, okay? They live, their house on a different ward. I do not have time to observe these patients. And if I am dedicating time to working with these patients, observing their behavior, then that means it's going to take away from the time that I should be working with my patients on my ward, right? Something gonna have to give, right? It doesn't make sense when you do the math. It's only but so many hours in a work day, and I'm going home at 4:30. Okay, I'm not gonna be here past hours, and I see that is the trend there in other departments. In psychiatry, my poor psychiatrist on my team, yo, he be putting in overtime. I don't even know if he get paid for overtime. Now, psychologists, we don't get paid for overtime there. He's working like well into the night. Leaving at 12:30. I'm like, why don't you say no? He's like, I feel bad for saying no. You feel bad for saying no? Like, how are they compensating you? How are they making sure that you're okay emotionally, psychologically? You're so dedicated, so committed to making sure that they have coverage, and you're working weekends. This is even part of your job description. I was like, yo, it's okay to say no. And he's like, yeah, but I feel bad because they don't have anybody else to do it. So fucking what? That's going to force them to go out and recruit people to fill these positions. It's not our fault that they are short-staffed. It's actually their fault, because look at the trend. They do not care about, if they don't care about the mental health of their own hired employees, you know they don't give a damn about the patients, because if they did, we are responsible for the care of the patients. If you are dumping all of these responsibilities, all these assignments onto staff, you cannot, because there is a direct correlation, right, between all of this work that you're dumping onto us, spreading us thin, that which can have a propensity, which more likely will lead to burnout, which I've seen, right, with my own eyes, and I've heard the cries of just staff there, employees there at this facility who are complaining, not to even mention, okay, I forgot to even mention, on every ward, there are therapy aides. In Florida, we call them mental health technicians, but these are the people who actually work directly with the patients, and they are responsible for like the supervision of them, right? Day to day. And they are burnt out. They cannot leave their shift unless there's adequate coverage, which there is, and there's a shortage of therapy aides. And so they end up being forced to work double shifts. Like, they're sleeping on the job. There are cameras throughout the facility. They're asleep. They're sleeping. Even the patients have noted this. Like, yo, the patients have said, I don't feel safe, because the people who are responsible for supervising me, making sure that I am safe, are asleep. Why are they asleep? Because they burnt the fuck out. But nobody does anything about it, right? This is the reason why this social worker said, oh, it's not going to change. Like, you can talk to whoever you want to talk to about it. It's not going to change. It's not going to, okay. I don't think y'all know me. So this is what I was saying at the beginning of the video. It's like, people make assumptions on who they think they know, right? Because I guess how things have been previously, right? People have just worked the job. They show up, they do the work. I've never been that person. Yo, like even my mom, when I told her that I accepted this position back in December, she didn't even congratulate me. Because my mom knows me. She didn't even congratulate me. You know what she said to me? Danielle, just do what they say. Because she know, like, yo, I'm not with the bullshit. I'm not. I have not really worked for anyone. I have not. Yes, I have successfully completed a PhD program, 5-year PhD program, because I love studying. I love academia. I like research. I have a passion for this, right? But do not take advantage. And when I see something is wrong, yo, I'm going to speak out. And I have spoken to the department. I have. But, like I said, it continues to persist because other people talk about it. Nothing is done. People show up to work. And that's the thing. So there's a degree of blind compliance, right? And people begrudgingly just come to work. And they're bitter. Like, I'm looking at the faces. I'm hearing the stories, like, and it's gotten so bad that staff, which I won't do this in front of patients because I have a degree of professionalism when I'm on the job, but yo, there are staff who actually gripe and complain in front of the patients, and they're just like, yo, I can't take this shit anymore. I can't take it any freaking more. What's the racial demographic of the patients of that population is very diverse. It represents almost every demographic across the globe. This is New York City, so you can only imagine, right? Almost every demographic is represented in the patient population, but I would have to say the majority is black, just like you see in the prison system, right? This is in a secure psychiatric facility. And nothing is done, right? So it just kind of carries on as business as usual, work as usual. Yet these facilities are held to certain standards, right? And they are licensed, and there is a licensing body that governs the operation, right, to make sure they're held to certain standards. And this is across many different areas in terms of just patient quality care and making sure the place is clean, right? Making sure that the chairs are functional, they're not broken and they're not torn, and you know, there are not any ligature risks, right? Given that this is a psychiatric facility, people are there because they are severely mentally ill. Otherwise, they would not be there. There are locks on the doors. These patients cannot leave. Even if they wanted, they cannot leave, right? They are there by court order, by the judge to be there. Involuntarily, they're not there because they want to be there. They're there against their will, okay? And they have to go through this licensing or relicensing every 3 years, and their recertification is coming up. And they're like, oh, well, when the surveyors come, you have to know certain things to say to them, to give the facade that you know the mission, and you know this and you know that. Fuck all of that, okay? Y'all don't know me. Everybody else just does it. Like, I am not that person, right? I'm not that person. I've expressed myself to my direct team members. I've expressed myself to the head of the psychology department, saying, I am not with this, right? So something is going to have to give. I agreed to do my job, work 8 to 4:30. All this extra coverage, no, right? Asking me to do things that I feel in my heart are unethical, no, right? Writing treatment plans and notes on patients that I have not seen just so that, oh, it's covered and it's in the chart. so that when a surveyor's come and they flip through the patient's chart, the information is there. Fuck no, I'm not doing that shit. If I feel that it's unethical, right? And it's good that I'm a budding psychologist because they drill this ethic stuff in our head, right? And I've said this, and they're just like through one end after the other. Now, granted, I am working towards licensure. I'm under supervision, under someone else's license. And I've said this to one of my I have 2 supervisors who are overseeing my licensure hours. One of which is a forensic psychologist. The other one, she's a standard clinical psychologist. And I've expressed to my supervisor, the clinical psychologist, like the same sentiment. Like, yo, this is fucking insane. Now, the funny thing, she shares in my sentiment. And she has voiced her concerns openly in our department meetings that we have monthly. She's like, this is bullshit. Like, she is very vocal and uninhibited. She's just out there. And I remember after our last meeting that we had in person, we were on the elevator and she was just going off. And then the other psychologist, Mel, and the team, he was like, you're going to just do that in front of the new psychologist, the new employee? And she's like, at this point, I don't give a fuck. But she's been there like, yo, this is a state, right? And everybody knows that city and state, they have good benefits, right? They pay well, of course. My salary is decent, okay? I'm probably getting paid more than my colleagues who completed the same graduate program with me and they entered into a full-time position as I am now. I'm probably one of the highest paid in my graduating class. I would not be surprised because I work for the state. But at the same time, it's like, so the fuck what? I think that's the reason why people stay. So that's the reason why people have been there for so long. So you look around, you see people have been there for 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, fucking 30. I came across a therapy aide has been there for 30 years. But they hate it. I met with my supervisor this past week and I let her know, like, yo, I don't think I'm going to be here too much longer. And that's just a fact. I know. And it's not about, oh, you're weak, you can't take it. That's a manipulation, right? A person may think that, go to that thought and say, you reach your breaking point. You can't. It's not about a fucking breaking point. It's about me going in, having a set standard of how I know things should be ran within a facility. We're talking about mental health, right? And also how I want to be treated, how I expect things to operate. No, it's not going to be perfect. But if people are saying it's only going to get worse and the psych department head is like, oh, well, the only difference between you and the other psychologists is that you haven't had the chance to work 2 wards at the same time. 2 wards being 48 patients, 48 to 50 patients roughly, right? As if 1 ward isn't enough, right? As if 24 patients on 1 ward isn't enough. So I'm like, is that the worst? I'm not now covering 2 wards. Are you kidding me? Basically, essentially, what they are saying is that the worst is having to do the work of 2 psychologists, but only get paid for 1. Nah, I'm not playing those games. I know my value. I know my worth. I will never. And the thing is, at some time back in the past, they actually hired psychologists and told them, okay, you're going to be on 2 wards. They ain't know no better, right? So my supervisor, she's one of them, and she's still stuck working 2 wards. Everyone else just has 1, and they're providing coverage, though. So it's like basically doing the work of 1.25 psychologists, right? Doing the work of a psychologist and a quarter, essentially, right? A 1.5 psychologist. Like, no, I'm not, nah. And then it's just going to increase, right? That's the worst, what they're saying, right? They try to ease it on you, slide it in to slowly acclimate you to this. And say, okay, you're going to just do the work of 1.25 psychologists. And then, we'll increase it to 1.5 and then 1.75. Before you know it, it's 2. You're doing the work of 2 psychologists, but still only getting paid for the work of 1. And they have those vacancies open. Those vacancies are still there, but they're not filling those vacancies. Are you prepared to be a whistleblower? I don't give a fuck about, see, for me, it's not even about blowing the whistle, right? It's about, I care about myself first and foremost, right? Like, I care most about myself. I have to. That's just natural, right? I gotta take care of me. It's called self-care. And so I'm voicing my concerns to them about this. And I've said to my team, they thought I was joking. Because I think they hear it so much, they're just like, that person ain't going nowhere, right? People complain and nothing is done, right? People voice, not, I hate to use the word complain because it's really not complaining. It's about voicing your concerns and nothing is done. And I know this is not the only organization that this situation has. Yo, this is New York City. It happens, I'm sure, across the board. And that's why when I'm on the train, I'm looking at people's faces and people just look so tired and downtrodden. It's just like beaten. And they work, they work fucking tirelessly, right? These organizations, these companies, they don't care. It's just about getting money for them. They're squeezing the life force out of a... No, you're not going to do that to me, right? So I have foresight enough to be able to see, like, no, nip this shit in the bud early on. But that's where they went wrong, right? Because if they were so mischievous, which they are mischievous, but nah, you can't outsmart me when it comes to this. If they were that smart, then they would have waited. They would have waited. Yeah, I'm in my first year, right? They did it too soon. Too soon. You did too soon with this. Wait, let me get a year in, maybe 2 years. Maybe let me feel like, okay, I've put in some work and I'm committed to a certain extent. I've said to them, I say, no, the difference between me and the other psychologists, first of all, I'm a change maker. Second of all, because I just have a certain kind of spirit in me. Second of all, I am not committed. I say I'm committed, but not to the extent that they are, right? And this just goes without saying. It's not to say, oh, I'm not a loyal employee and all that. No, that's bullshit. It's about, if I've only been here 4 months and we have other psychologists who've been here over 10 years, of course, clearly they're more committed because they put in more work. They've accepted a lot of bullshit, right? And they've built up their tolerance for the bullshit. I am not one of them. So I can easily walk out. Yes, I think I do feel attached to my team that I work with. I do, right? I feel like I've developed rapport with the patients I work with. There's a relationship there. There's an attachment there, right? I do feel that way. So that would probably be the hardest part in parting, because it's just like, okay, saying goodbye will be bittersweet, right? But I'm like, y'all don't think that I'm about to be out here. And I think that's what the social worker, he was going towards, hinting at, like, oh, well, other people have said that, other people, as if like I'm threatening to leave. I'm just like, I don't think I'm going to be here too much longer. I move, I make moves. People who should know, like, how I move. I make moves in my best interest first and foremost. And because the way I look at it, like, they are going to protect their interests, so I got to protect mine. I've said this in the meetings at my school, face to face, y'all. I've been called in meetings, y'all. Number of meetings when I was working towards my PhD. It's a political thing. I get it. I get the bureaucracy. I've been called in meetings, and the issue of the law came up, right? Lawsuits, and they're talking protecting interests. I say, well, I have my own interests to protect. See, I know how to speak up for myself. I know how to advocate for myself. I'm not stupid. I see through all the bullshit. And I have everything to lose, but I have absolutely nothing to lose. Understand that, right? I can say I have attachments, but I have no attachments. I know how to reframe my mind to all of this. Y'all can take it. Take it. I don't care. Right? I've done this before. People don't know my backstory, but I've been through a lot in my life, and I've lost things that taught me a lesson. Like, listen, I've worked up and accumulated a lot of material things and lost it all. right? And it's taught me it doesn't even matter. What really matters is your self-worth, your dignity, your self-respect. That's what matters. So, I have already, I always have many backup plans, right? I would like to go into an agency or company, whatever you want to call it, organization, whatever, entity, and, you know, be a part of it, right? And not have to think about other options. But I read shit real quick, y'all. It don't take me long. I read that shit real quick. I read the whole fucking organization. I read it. I see it for what it is. It is what it is. It's not going to change. And I actually appreciate my social worker for being ever so brutally honest to say, that's what they all say, right? It's like a sarcasm, but it's a truth in that. That actually is stung, right? Because on one hand, it felt like I wasn't being heard, and it felt like he was kind of dismissing, right, the seriousness of my concern being put on the table. But at the same time, it was what was needed to kind of like activate me in that way. Right? If it's anything that fucking can activate me, it's a person not taking my words seriously when I am delivering a message that I feel needs to be received, right? Especially in that context of this professional context, right? And I'm like, okay, that's all I need. I'm like, okay, that's all I needed to hear, right? And I'm already making moves to the extent where I've already been on interviews. I've already gotten interviews. Well, y'all think this shit is a game. I'm glad that my supervisor, the clinical psychologist, told me this week. She was like, because I was letting her know, like, listen, I got options. And I'm going to explore those options to see what's a good fit in terms of what decision I should make. And she was like, yeah, they only see you as a number anyway. Like, I need that truth, right? That's why I love New York City, because people do not hesitate to speak truth. You need to hear the truth. You don't need that sugarcoating. Oh, I'm sorry, don't go. It's going to get better. No, tell me the fucking truth. Tell me it's going to get worse. And tell me that they don't value me. I'm only just a number, and they're going to find a way to get coverage. Not necessarily hiring a new psychologist, but stretching the current psychologist they have even further thin. That's going to be unfortunate for them, and that's going to be their problem. But, I'm always fucking ready, yo. I'm always like 10 steps ahead. It's just me. I don't have any children. It's just me. I have a lot of time and opportunity in my hands, yo. So, yeah, I've been on interviews. I have interview schedule. Like, I have interview schedule coming up. And I wanted to tell you guys about this interesting, funny interview. Now, I'm not going to take the position. I already know I'm not, because the guy seems very weird. So, this is a medical practice. Well, it's a multidisciplinary practice. Here in Upper East Side, Manhattan. Not too far from where I live. Just up a couple blocks up the street. This guy owns many different locations. And it's multidisciplinary. It's mostly medical doctors, psychologists, social workers. And he has a census of over 300 clients, patients. Doing pretty well. Like, I can tell. You can tell. You see money when you see money. You can see money, right? And so, the interview, like, everything happens so quick. This is how I know this is a universe, right? Because there's no way. Like, I put in applications. The moment that switch went off in my head, I'm like, okay, I see what I'm dealing with here. I don't waste time, yo. Put in applications, yo, that same day. And I get interviews the same day. Interview offers the same. Yo, shit move quick. Plus, there's a shortage. Like, there's a shortage of a lot of fucking people and employees across, I'm pretty sure not only New York, but everywhere. A lot of people quit their jobs. They didn't want to get vaccinated. And just, it was a lot of shifting happening during the pandemic. And so, he set up the interview, and I went to the interview, and I'm walking. Now, first I Googled the address, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, damn, this shit look nice. Look brand new. And I get there, and I'm like, damn, you can smell newness, right? You can smell like the office is like fresh out the box, which could be a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, right? So I'm smelling it, and I go there, and it's one of those, like, the entry, you have to, like, it's like a touch screen fucking bell that you ring, put your finger on there, and, you know, camera activated and all that shit. Opens the door. I go in. Dude seemed off. Now, I got there early, and then he was like, okay, give me 5 minutes. We were texting back and forth. He was like, okay, give me 5 minutes. And I just took, like, a brief walk around the block. Breathe. Exhale. Came back around. He opens the door. He's all excited. Hi. Right? And invites me in. We sit down. And I'm like, because I read energy. A lot of people read energy, right? A person can be saying words, but the words don't really matter. It's the energy. And so his energy seemed off. But I'm sitting there, and we're having a conversation. Of course, he's getting to know me. And I realized, like, yo, the way he started off the interview, I think he fucked up. He fucked up because he's introducing himself and his company. And the focus is, oh, like, you know, I'm paraphrasing. He's like, yeah, you know, driven. It's about working hard. You know anything about entrepreneurship? Shit sound like some scam shit, right? I'm like, hold on, what is this? A pyramid scheme? He's like, yeah, you know about entrepreneurship. Who doesn't know about entrepreneurship? At this point, who hasn't had a taste of their own experience as an entrepreneur? I think everybody, right? So, of course, everybody knows, like, it's about working hard. But I'm like, what does that got to do with me, right? Because as advertised, the position is as an employee, right? And as an employee, your salary is not contingent upon how hard you work necessarily. It's really just about, are you there? Are you doing your job? Okay, you get paid, right? Of course, it's more to the job than just showing up. But you get my drift, right? There's a difference in terms of the payout when you are an entrepreneur versus an employee. So for him to share that piece of information, why is that relevant? To me, that was a red flag. This is like the initial thing he's mentioning. And like when we sat down after saying hello and how are you and all that. And I'm just like, okay. And I had to ask him, I'm very frank, at this age, you know, sense and sitting up here trying to sugarcoat shit, and present one way when something else that you're experiencing. No, like, I'm a straight shooter, okay? And so I'm like, I get that, yeah, you know, you are the owner. It's important that you're driven, right? Working hard and all of that. How does that relate to my job as a psychologist, right? As advertised, you're looking for a psychologist, and the nature of the work is providing psychotherapy. And then he was like, oh, wait, it really doesn't, but I'm just saying it from my perspective, so you can get the idea of just like the type of company we are. Like, I'm always trying to look out for the best interests of my employees, and kind of saying, not saying these exact words, but pretty much of the effect of, oh, if I eat, you know, they eat, right? So we work hard, everybody eat kind of thing. And I'm just like, what is your caseload? Like, what is your census? Right? Is this a startup? Like, what the fuck is going on? I mean, the office looks brand spanking new. We're talking Upper East Side. Yo, real estate Upper East Side is not fucking cheap at all. Right? Unless he knows somebody that knows somebody, which he probably does. And that kind of got uncovered as the conversation progressed. By the way, the interview, which I pretty much was in control over, lasted well over an hour. Because I wanted to know some things about his ass. Like, what you got going on here, bro? Right? Oh, and shall I mention, at the beginning phase of the interview, he was like, oh, what's your ethnic background? I'm like, I'm African American. He was like, oh, what part of Africa are you from? That question annoys the shit out of me. Okay? Anybody know history? It goes without saying that a person with my phenotype and genotype clearly is of African descent. To ask the question, what part of Africa you're from, is really offensive, I think, if you ask me. Right? And of course, I know that there's this whole movement of African Americans taking their DNA test to see what tribe they're connected to. That to me is irrelevant. Now, it can be relevant, right? To maybe you can say, okay, well, based on this tribe, it explains why you have a certain character disposition. But no, none of that shit really matters because there's a lot of overlap. When you look at Africa, there's a lot of overlap in the way they dress. Of course, the languages differ, right? But we're talking about just general cultural characteristics. Like, there's a lot of overlap. That to me, that whole tribalism is a form of separatism. I'm not really buying into that, right? And I don't buy into the DNA test, the African ancestry. It sounds good on the surface, right? And I almost was convinced, but it's just like, to pay someone to tell me that I am from Africa, that has got to be the dumbest shit ever, right? But people do it. I don't have to pay someone to tell me that my black ass is black or from Africa. But anyway, it's clear, right? I'm Africanoid, and I said I'm a descendant. I told him I'm a descendant of people from Africa, and he goes, "Well, I'm real African American." Now this is a fucking white man. This is a Caucasian, right? He says, I'm a real African. And he tells me the country he was born in Africa. And then he was like, yeah, then I grew up in South Africa. I gave his ass no fucking reaction. I didn't even entertain that bullshit. I'm just like looking at him like, can we get on with the interview? Seriously, like, what is this? Like, you're a real African American, and I'm gonna speak a little bit about this. I feel like ignorance should not be entertained. But I have to say this: of course, there are a lot of Europeans that have migrated to Africa, or even were born in Africa, and so they claim African. But they're not. The way I see it, African is related to one's genes, right? It's a genetic ancestry. It's a genetic heritage, right? That's African. Now, one can make the argument, of course, we all at some point descended from Africa. This is motherland, right? Every living creature. But let's be practical here. And so, yeah, I get annoyed when you have white people who want to sit up here and that's not up for debate with me. I don't entertain foolishness, right? I feel like that energy, because we only have so much, can be devoted towards productive conversations. And I'm not going to sit up here and entertain that foolishness. But moving along, so like, yeah, he was kind of giving me the breakdown. He wanted to know about me first, which I shared with him about me. I thought he was asking kind of questions that had nothing to do with nothing. Like, oh, what did your parents do? And I'm like, yo, he said, what do my parents do? I'm like, yo, my dad is 80 years old, okay? He lives in Florida. He's retired. My mom, same thing. She's 68, but what the fuck that got to do? But I guess it's like, I just want to get a feel of you, who you are, right? So I'm telling him, of course, how I got to this point professionally in my career as a psychologist, and he's looking over my credentials. My resume speaks for itself. My shit stands on its own 2 feet, okay? I have experience. I'm overqualified, if you ask me. And it's clear that's why a lot of these employees do not hesitate to reach out to me. And I get interviews. Like, I know my worth. I know what I bring to the table. And I'm very skilled at what I do. I love what I do. And it shows. I can get the job done. And I will get the job done. Right? So he kept emphasizing like hard work. I'm just like, okay, hard work goes without saying. To tell somebody to work hard, I think it should be evident. Listen, if a motherfucker finished a PhD program, that it don't get no harder than that. Okay. Of course, unless you did an MD. MDs, they got it the worst. But my psychiatrist, he actually told me that the psychiatrist on the team where I worked told me that he didn't have to do a dissertation. He didn't have to do a research study, whereas we do as PhDs. We have to develop our own fucking empirical research study. He said he didn't have to do that. But they still have a lot of training during their studies as medical students, and even after they graduate, and residencies and all of that. It's a lot, and much of which is unpaid. Listen, I've been through that. We have similar tracks that we go through as PhD students in psychology, and it's very intensive. So at this point, it should go without that. I feel like that should not be the focus of the conversation. Oh, you gotta work hard. Like, no, like a degree speaks for us. That's the whole point of fucking getting a damn degree, right? And especially, of course, it's APA accredited, because APA is the governing body that accredits these doctoral programs, right? And so they have certain standards, okay? Not all graduate programs are APA accredited, right? And not all internship programs that graduate students complete in their final year of their doctoral studies is accredited, right? But of course, I would only graduate and attend a program that is accredited. And so it's very rigorous training. It's not just some fly-by-night type of shit. And so I think the conversation should be more about what's relevant to the actual position, and being more specific about it, not talking roundabout, generally speaking, working hard. What does that actually look like, right? Because if the idea is that it's a typical 40-hour work week and I'm doing psychotherapy, all right, what is the patient population? What is the nature? What is the presenting problem for these people? Why are they even coming to therapy in the first place? And so we began to talk about that and how he gets most of his referrals, which come from lawyers. I'm like, okay. And he mentioned that and it sounds more like it's a combination of voluntary and involuntary. Them getting the therapy services, but I'm like, okay, and it's paid through their employer's workers' comp. So I'm like, okay, I think I got an idea. So it seems like, okay, that should be pretty straightforward then, right? Like, where's the working hard? Like, at this point, like, I don't think you get no more working hard than working at a goddamn psychiatric hospital. Okay. Working with people who are severely mentally ill. I don't think it gets... This actually will be a step down from that, right? I'm like, that your patient population, these are working class people. Yes, they work. They have jobs. Oh, okay. They pay bills. Okay. The people I work with, they don't. They have low functioning. They hear voices. They're psychotic. They are aggressive, right? They want to die. They have tried to kill themselves. They have killed other people, slaughtered, like family members and shit, right? Stab, shoot people, right? That's the kind of people I work with. I don't think it gets no more hard working than that. Maybe it does. Maybe with NYPD. That's a different story too. But not within the psychology department. For police officers, yes, but not for psychologists who work for NYPD. I don't think so much. It's a different type of hard work, I think, when it comes to the role of a psychologist within NYPD. So, yeah, I finished the interview, but I just felt like, So the question came up, right, after he's getting to know me, my background, and I'm getting to know him, and he's like, oh, yeah, we have offices throughout Manhattan and the Bronx and this and that, you know, fluffing his feathers. I'm just like, okay. And then the question, I mean, of course I had to ask. It's like, I'm like, will I be taking a pay cut? Right? And because the reason why I brought it up, because he was talking about pay, right? It was like, and that was like one of the first things he mentioned at the beginning of the interview. He's like, yeah, the difference of being an entrepreneur. I think that's the reason why he was mentioning that too, right? Because I'm like, how is that relevant to me? But he was bringing up the topic of entrepreneurship because obviously it fluctuates, right? Like how much money you make depends obviously, yeah, on hard work. Like you have to get these patients and make sure that, yeah, you maintain that census, right? It's different, especially for employees. The work is not really going to fall on us. I mean, we just got to show up obviously and develop the relationship. That's where it's important, so that they can maintain a certain number of people there on a consistent basis that correlates with income, salary, revenue, essentially, for him. That differs than the state, which he mentioned with the state or with any other organization who receives government funding. Like the funding is there, right? It's pretty stable over time. So you're going to get paid regardless, essentially, right? And so that's why he was mentioning that. And when he brought that up, like, of course, I want to know, like, you got me wondering, can you even afford to pay me, right? And I said, well, I'll be taking a pay cut. And he asked me how much was I making where I currently work. And I told him exactly how much I was making. Decent, okay? He knows that, right? This is like public information. Anybody can find out how much psychologists make working for the state, but it's decent. And he wrote down the number, the exact number. He was like, oh, okay. And I said, all right, will you at least be able to match that? He was like, I can do better than that. A couple $1,000 better. I was like, okay. You got some cool points there. But he concerned me, though, about, like, his uncertainty. When a person is uncertain, it makes me uncertain, right? Like, okay, you're uncertain for a reason. So now I'm questioning, like, I'm feeling doubtful because you're wondering, right? Like, if you're unsure, come on, yo. What's going on? Because, of course, like, stability is important. I'm not about to sit up here and leave something that's stable to go to something that's less fucking stable. And, yeah, it's like, I don't know. He couldn't provide me with the confidence that he truly has a stable clientele base, which he said. Because I say, well, how many? What's your census, right? He says, I think 300 patients, and he claims, I think he was just fluffing. He claims like he gets like 40 to 50 referrals weekly, and they come from attorneys. So it was like part of his hard work is making sure that he maintains a good relationship with all these attorneys. Yo, this motherfucker seemed like a hustler. He had like those mischievous looking eyes, like the Joker, just looking like up to something. He doing some illegal shit behind the scenes. So I don't know, I don't know if I would be a good match there necessarily, because yeah, I can sense when something isn't right. And of course, like I said, nothing is perfect, right? I mean, it's problems. There are gaps. There are holes in every organization, every entity, company, whatever. And oftentimes, to cover up those gaps, like unethical shit and illegal shit happens. You see it, right? I'm pretty sure you guys watching can identify those gaps in your own organization that you work for, and you can see, right, some foul shit happening to cover up those gaps, but you kind of overlook it. It's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, right? It doesn't really affect your paycheck or your livelihood, so you just keep on trekking. But when shit does start to affect me, like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm just like, hell no. I'm not going to be here for the worst part of this. I'm like, how do people do it? I asked my supervisor, I'm like, how? I asked both my supervisors, the clinical psychologist and the forensic psychologist. I'm like, how did you work towards, and this is before she became a forensic psychologist. And I like her. I actually have much respect for my forensic psychologist supervisor. I like her personality. I just like that she's like a strong woman type persona, and she's just very articulate and very confident in herself. And you know, she testifies for all of the CPL patients. So the CPL are the guys or women who were there by reason of, they used to call it insanity, but now it's by reason of mental defect. So she testifies in their court cases, and that's a lot of work involved in that. And being that I work with her, like directly with her, I get to kind of go up under her wing and see what that is like. So it's a lot of things I feel that is keeping me there. Like, I feel like it is piquing my interest. Like, imagining, you know, what things could be like in terms of the good side, right, of working there, optimistically speaking, because nothing is all bad, nothing is all good. So I think that there is a degree of hope and promise there in terms of me rising up and gaining very valuable experience working within that setting. But one has to come to a decision. And I share this with you guys because this is just my experience, but I'm pretty sure you guys can learn from it as it relates to your own personal lives. You know, it comes to a point where you have to make a decision. You weigh the cost, the benefits, right? Risk analysis. And you see like, okay, is there much room for growth here, right? Is there much leverage, or is there a ceiling? Which I believe there is. I mean, I think... So there's a range, there's a pay grade for every position there, and there's a low end, you know, people start at if they don't have prior state experience, and it kind of goes up, and there is a ceiling, right? It's a range, and it increases, their salary increases every year, but at some point there still is a cap, and that also has been a reason why I have been opposed to working for anybody, or let's say having a job, because there's always a salary cap, right, when you're working for someone, as opposed to going the more independent route, like dude was saying. But he has a lot of work, seems like, cut out for him too. And as I was walking out from the interview, I'm like, yo, look, it smells brand new in here. It smells like this just opened. And he was like, yeah, this is one of our new offices. I'm just like, I don't know if I believe him. Something tells me to not really trust what he's saying. He just kind of gives that air. Because even when I was speaking with him, and I'm going to end this video, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to try on these African wear, these things that I'm going to show you guys before I end the video. But yeah, it's just like, you know, you talk to a person, it's just like they're not really attending to what you're saying because they're focused on what they're going to say next. He seemed like he had a bit of unease about him. That's concerning to me. Because he would ask me questions, I would provide an answer, but he didn't catch anything what I said. So he would have to ask the question again. Not that he couldn't understand my articulation, but I can tell that his mind was somewhere else. Right? I'm just like, I don't know if this is going to go well. Yeah, he seemed like it's got something else going on, yo. Something else, which I'm more curious about learning about. I'm like, yeah, it seems pretty interesting, you know. He got some other shit happening behind the scenes. And he was doing a lot to try to sell himself. Like, sell the idea of working there. Just overselling it, yo. Seemed very desperate. Which makes me question. Before I accepted this position where I work in December, I've been on so many interviews. I made a video about that too, how like, I had so many interviews, postdoc interviews. One of which I interviewed with NYPD. And even with them, they're talking about chief psychologist, chief this, chief that. It's two against me. And they nervous. They tripping over their words and shit. What y'all got? What I got going on? Why are you nervous? These are men who have been, like, they have high positions within NYPD, well paid, been in the field, been there for years. Yo, why the fuck are you nervous? But anyway, I'm not worried about anything. I just felt I would share this with you. I actually was going to do it as a prank and say, haha, April Fools. Granted, April 1st has long passed, but it doesn't mean that it's too late to do an April Fool's joke. It's never too late. Or to do a prank. I was going to do it as a prank and say, haha, no. But I can't even fucking joke about this, yo. I'm dead ass serious. Actually, I'm dead ass, yo. I'm like, yeah, they got me fucked up. And I think the idea for them, how they say, oh, well, she has to be committed because she's working towards her licensure hours. And so if she quits, then she's going to have to just start somewhere else. The question is, will they sign for the hours I've already completed, right? So I would have to submit 2 forms to the state for my licensure as far as my experience goes, postdoc experience. If I've had supervision at more than one location, I would have to get this location to sign for my hours and then the other. But it's like, will they do it, or will they try to fucking be revengeful and bitter and be like, no, we're not signing her hours because she just left us? Nah, but I gave a warning, so I didn't just leave. I fucking had a conversation with y'all motherfuckers. And the thing is, what I don't like is how people try to, because I'm like, y'all act like I don't study psychology too. Like, yo, I'm in the field just as much as y'all are in the field, right? We're all psychologists. So you can't pull manipulation on me. You can't manipulate a manipulator. You cannot manipulate a psychologist. You cannot manipulate and try to gaslight, which a lot of that was happening when I was voicing my concerns. Like, oh, well, you know, you're complaining, or you're being cynical. I'm not a cynical person. I'm just making an observation and sharing my thoughts. And it seems like it's just being blown under the rug. Like, all right, nothing we're going to do about it. Okay. Yeah, I ain't got to do shit. My thing is this. I do care about the patients. So, as far as the question about being a whistleblower, it's like, no, I'm voicing this for my own personal well-being, right? And also, obviously, you know, for them too, because they're going to have to find somebody to cover. Somebody going to have to even cover, like, they're already short psychologists before I came there, right? And then, you know, I came in and provided some relief because there was a psychologist who's covering my ward and his ward. Now, I'm working there, so he only has 1 ward. I leave, his ass gonna be covering both wards. Yo, this is a lot. And his ass suffering injuries from fucking patients. They're gonna, if you're failing, okay? It's clear, they're failing, okay? I'm saying this also to help y'all motherfuckers out. So you can see, like, I mean, they already know the problems that they face, but take into account what staff are saying, and it's just kind of, they gaslight, go through one ear and out the other, or minimize it, you know. They try to use certain words to try to make it seem as though your concerns are invalid and you're just complaining, and that shit don't work with me. If I don't feel like I'm valued, I don't give a fuck where it is. I have to set boundaries in my own personal life, in my own personal relationships, and professionally. This is just me. This is who I am. This is my belief system, which is not going to change. And I stand firm on that at any cost, at all costs. And so I'm just saying this for y'all, so that y'all are aware. Okay, so there's no surprise when I fucking bounce up on out of this shit. Okay, I don't think much is going to change. It's just, it is what it is. I'm just want to make sure that I'm covered, right, and making sure that I take care of myself before it gets worse. I have to say that. But I don't see how people do it. I don't see how people stay. I mean, I know how. Of course, right? When I say I don't see how, though, it's just, it's painful to see that people stay places that they know is not conducive to their well-being and their growth. Especially when you have a choice in the matter. And I asked my supervisor, I said, why stay? Why are you still here? And she's like, well, you know, people stay because they've been here for so long and the benefits and retirement, right? So they're playing this whole retirement game. After you work so many years, then I think the year is 25 years with this particular agency in the state. Then you get the full retirement benefit and whatever. You put in 25 years for retirement. Fuck retire. I was like, yeah, there's so many different ways you can develop a retirement plan, right? That's a topic for a whole nother video. But that part, and then the location, they don't want to leave because, oh, it's close to where they live, and then they have children and all that. Listen, none of that shit applies to me, okay? Let's just be clear. None of that shit applies to me. So I really don't have a stake in staying. What is my reason to stay? Granted, yeah, aside from the attachments that I've made with the patients, with the staff, the relationships, right, the rapport I've built, but aside from that, fuck that. That shit come and go. So I'm just like, Bobo. No. Something gonna have to give. But listen, this is how it's gonna go. The universe will decide. That's just how it's gonna go. The universe will decide what will happen next, and I will move accordingly. It is what it is. We're from the whole continent, DNA all over, exactly. Now, I'm wondering the material of this. I think I gotta stop ordering shit from overseas because their material be cheap as hell, yo. And that's the reason why the items be cheap as hell. But the design is pretty, so I like the packaging. This actually came from Shein. Let's see here. I'm about to try these on. Oh, okay. Okay, may not be as cheap as I thought. Let's see. I don't know. These came from India? I knew it was some foreign country. Okay, then. Oh, sure. Okay. I think this is a medium. Oh, these are men. This is a small. Wait, what size is this that I'm wearing now? Please tell me this is a small because I ordered a small and a medium. Everything is made in China, yo. I already put these on, but I wanted to see. I guess I'll see when I put on the other ones what size it is. I hope this is a small because if it gets smaller than this, I probably won't be able to fit it. Your girl getting thick. Okay. Okay then. Yeah, they fuck around. If I listen, it can go a few ways, right? It can go several ways. I stay at that motherfucker. I'm telling you, I'm gonna speak truth. So everybody else gonna come, I'm gonna let it all out. They wanna sit up here and be like, oh, like they just don't wanna take into account what people are saying. And even my supervisor called a meeting with the union. She called a meeting with the union because she didn't want to do the COVID coverage. And they were forcing her because she felt like she wasn't safe. Me, I don't really buy into the whole COVID bullshit, but that's a whole nother video. Granted, I mean, yeah, viruses are real, but I don't operate under fear like that. And so she didn't want to work on the COVID ward, and she was protesting that. And so she called a meeting with the union so the union rep could vouch. They asked, like, what the fuck they there for? They ain't really do shit. The union ain't really vouch like that. The meeting was I was on the meeting. The meeting was pointless. The fuck is y'all there for if the staff still got to go work on a COVID ward where she didn't feel safe? That was the issue. She didn't feel safe working on a COVID ward, especially with children. She got young children. So she still had to go work on a COVID ward. This is cute. I hope this is a small, because if it gets smaller than this, I ain't gonna be able to fit it. Alright. Alright. I like. I don't know why I even got a freaking small, but I figured these were man pants. But my thick ass. Yeah, I'm like, y'all fuck around if y'all want to. Y'all either make changes, I leave and go work somewhere else. They fired my black ass, which they could do. For what reason would they have to fire me? One thing about me, like, I make sure I do things right. So a person ain't got shit on me. They ain't got nothing on me. They can try to find shit, fabricate. They probably try to do that. They ain't got nothing on me. Or I still be there and the surveyors come. They ain't gonna want me there. Cause if I'm there, I'm telling it all, motherfucker. Goddamn right. For what? This is my thing, right? People want you to be loyal to them. How are you loyal to me? Are you backing me? Because if you regarding my concerns, you ain't got my back. I don't have your back. This is self-care. I've learned this over the years. People would sit up here and expect you to ride and die for them, bend over backwards. But when it comes your turn around, they get their ass kissed. They don't care about you. And you sitting there looking stupid hurt when you need they motherfucking ass, right? You sitting there struggling, burnt the fuck out. Nah, something gonna have to give. Y'all got me fucked up. Huh. Better recognize. Fuckers don't know me like that. I like this. It's patchwork. It's a print though. See, that's the thing. It looks like, okay, it looks like it's actually pieces patched together, sewn together, but it's not. Unlike like Afro-African design, they actually sew the patches together. You can see the stitch work, which I really love that, but at the same time, I don't, because them shits be unraveling, yo. I had to actually go in and sew it myself, because it was coming apart. I didn't like that. I hated that shit. I'm just like, I'm gonna stop buying patchwork, because especially when it comes to the pants, because it's coming apart. Now, I'm loyal, my nigga. I'm a ride or die, but y'all got me fucked up. I don't ride or die for nobody who don't give a fuck about me. Oh shit, this is a medium I have on. So, or did they send me both mediums? Size medium. Hey, what size is this? I hope I can fit the next pair. Shit. Hold on. And that's a principle I think we should live by in our personal lives too, y'all. Ride or die. Make sure you take care. Girl, yes, that's why I'm doing this. Like, yes, that's what this whole thing is about. Self-care. Oh, because I didn't really go into too much detail about like the staff, and they burnt out, yo. They burnt out. I talked a little bit about it, how like they fall asleep on a job. And this ain't just like no quick nap. See, this is the thing about people who are used to abuse. Because I mentioned abuse. I was like, that's abuse. These staff here are being emotionally and psychologically abused. And then the social worker, oh, it may feel like abuse. No, you can't gaslight me. That shit don't work, okay? Say that for somebody else. But interesting enough, he just mentioned talking about, I remember when I was working on a different ward, It was a borderline ward. People, girls with borderline personality disorder. And he was like, the psychiatrist, the chief psychiatrist would kind of nod off. Fall asleep. No, this ain't no 5-minute nodding off. And then that's one thing if you nod off when you are in the staff office, away, like off the ward, right? Because the staff offices are connected to the ward, but they're not like on the ward, right? Where your ass got direct contact with the patients, where the patients come up and, interact with you. The staff offices are separate. So it's one thing if you say you tired, you nodding off in the staff office. That's what he said that he was doing. No, these staff are nodding off on the ward where they're supposed to be supervising patients. Now listen, I'm not no fucking snitch, but I am a person who I give a damn about myself. And this is the thing, that's where self-care comes in. If a person don't give a fuck about you, who gonna care about you? Who cares about you? And then that pretending like you care, that don't work with me, yo. That don't work with me. You can't pretend. I'm too smart for pretending. Pretending like you care does not work with me. I see through the bullshit. Okay, this is a small. Oh no, this is small. Yo, can I even wash these? Damn, I might get like one use out these motherfuckers. I think if I wash them, I ain't gonna be able to fit. So the first one I tried on was medium. This is small, and it's snug tight a little around my thighs. Okay. You goddamn right I take care of myself. I don't know. My mom come from a different generation, yo. So does my dad, clearly. My dad 80, my mom 68. And my dad was telling me how he used to pick cotton, and he was telling me about the pay, how the pay was a goddamn meal. A meal. They would say, they would give us some food to take home. My mom, I seen her work herself to death, literally, damn near. Literally. I'm like, you got high blood pressure because your ass worked too damn much in her lifetime. She don't work now. Working so hard, you're just so committed. You committed, yes, okay, it's one thing to really care. You care about people. She worked in a hospital too, in a medical hospital actually. Cares so much about people. You're there. My mom get up. She really loved her job when she was working. Get up early. I'm talking about early as shit. Earlier than what she needs to get up. That's just how much she's so dedicated. And she's there. Don't miss a day. Working double shifts and shit. Just working. Fucking working. Like, god damn. They don't give a fuck and you die. You think they'll come to your funeral? Hell no. They don't care about you. You're going to be replaced. They do not care. I've seen my mom work tirelessly. And work. Fuck that. Fuck that shit. I'm not gonna fall in those footsteps. Clearly, I haven't. I'm 38 years old. Clearly, I have not fell in her same footsteps. Hell no. I'm like, you did that. You work like that. I am not fucking working like that. Kiss my motherfucking name. Unless it's a good environment and they care, they respect me. I ain't working this shit. Kiss my motherfucking ass. Y'all can do that shit. I know a lot of y'all the same way. Y'all do what somebody else tell you to do. Oh, my mama did it. My daddy did it. They did it. Their parents did it. Fuck that. And that's a whole nother issue right there. Like, I'm speaking from a micro level, talking about my direct personal experience, but clearly this is a bigger issue than just me. This is a national issue. This is a global, well, I don't even know, can we say global? Because it's different in other countries now, from what I see. It's very different. It's America that's built on capitalism and got people having heart attacks and shit and abusing drugs and want to kill themselves because the shit is so damn stressful. They under a lot of pressure to succeed, to make the most money, to achieve the highest grades at their own expense, their own detriment. I can go on and on, but I'm not. I can write more about it in my book, American Dreamer, which I've already started back in 2009. I was supposed to release the book in 2010. But my autobiography is called American Dreamer. That should say it all right there. That should say it all right there. This whole false idea, this belief of meritocracy. Just work hard. Pfft, bullshit. Anyway, I'm going to end this video. Catch you guys later.